On June 6, 2017, a black bag was taken out of the reservoir. The perimeter was fenced off with a tape, for which no one is allowed in. The investigation is ongoing. Only you can hear it. Most likely hands, and it is probably a tongue. As it turned out, the remains of a burned little girl were in this bag.
In 2017, a terrible thing happened in Kryvyi Rih in the Dnipropetrovsk region. A little girl who was only 6 years old disappeared. After 3 days of searching, it turned out that she was already dead. The search for those responsible for this terrible crime did not take long. It took much longer to understand the horror of this crime. When it became clear who was behind it, sit down, friends, because this is very scary. So you see the Kudryavtsev family, mother Tatiana, father Yuri. They are in some sense local heroes because they raise as many as 8 children, 3 of their own and 5 adopted. Several years ago, the couple decided to create a family-type children's house. Yuri and Tatiana decided that they could do it.
It all started with watching TV in the evening, the Rudana channel. We saw a story where a child needs a family, so we looked at each other and decided that we could do this. We started to deal with the issue closely, submitted documents to the Child Welfare Service, took courses, and we had our first children. At that time, we already had 3 of our own biological children.
Little by little, the Kudryavtsevs became an example for other foster families and orphanages to follow. Media stories wrote about them. Their pupils took part in various children's holidays, and the family had a reputation as exceptionally caring and happy. In 2012, the Kudryavtsevs had 2 more children. They were brother and sister Timur and Amina Mengo.
They gave their parental love and warmth to 2 beautiful children who needed them so much. Amina and Timur came to this house a year ago. They did not know how to do anything that children of their age should know. They learned to sit and walk together. It was Tatiana who heard their first word and saw their first steps. The Kudryavtsevas showed the children that life is not so scary, that there are holidays.
Although the children ended up in a foster family, this doesn't mean that they were orphans at all. Amina was born on May 1, 2011 in Ukraine. She and her older brother were raised by her grandmother. The mother was present in their lives for a short time. Ilona, Amina's mother, is from Kryvyi Rih. When Amina was 7 months old and her brother was about 1.5 years old, her mother left in search of a safe life without children. At first, she tried to hide with her ex-husband, but he behaved very jealously and often crossed the limits of what was allowed, using physical violence. Ilona left her 2 babies with her grandmother and went abroad so that her ex-husband would not find her. First, she moved to Turkey, where she found a job and later settled there for a while. Later, she moved to Dubai, where she converted to Islam and got married. Meanwhile, Amina's grandmother suffered a heart attack and realized that she would not be able to take care of the children on her own.
The second husband was very jealous and even got to the point that he just wanted to kill her. She left the children with me, counting on a maximum of 1.5 months. No one knew that this pursuit would be so long. I thought a month or 2, but an hour has already passed. Amina starts to stand up in the crib, but I can't lift her. I only lift a 4-kilogram weight. I can't get Timur out of bed either. I say that I need to turn to the state for help. We sent the children to a boarding school, not to any foster family.
Now the woman could only move with the help of crutches, which, of course, prevented her from caring for her 2 young grandchildren. The daughter was still in Dubai, but due to the lack of the necessary documents, she could not return home. So the grandmother made a difficult but necessary decision. Years after the birth of Amina, the grandmother turned to the social service for help in caring for her grandchildren. This is how the children ended up in the Kudryavtsev family.
I turned to social services for temporary help in placing the children in a state institution and providing temporary help with my grandchildren. They were put in the hospital for examination because it is required by law. And then Tatiana Kudryavtseva came. I didn't know her before, but she's like that. Straight honey, understands everything, is so responsive. They went to visit the children. I gave food for the children because I couldn't get there lying down. She gave food. And they left on May 1st for her birthday, when she turned 1 year old.
On her first birthday, Amina met her future adoptive parents. At the end of the same month, Andriy and Tatiana Kudryavtseva took Amina and Timur home. Grandma continued to keep in touch with them, calling every day and asking how they were doing. About once a week, the foster parents brought the children to their grandmother. It seemed that everything was fine, but later the visits became less and less, and the woman had to request visits with her grandchildren already through social services. The life of the children in the Kudryavtsev family seemed not bad. Amina and Timur now had parents and many new brothers and sisters.
This family was exemplary, ideal, and highly publicized. Journalists were always invited to their events, and the children's service immediately referred the children to the Kudryavtsevs, that is, the service itself created such an image for them.
Time passed, and children grew, as they say, like mushrooms after the rain. All except Amina and Timur. After consulting a doctor, the parents found out that the brother and sister have a rare genetic disease, due to which they do not develop physically as they should for their age. Then the Kudryavtsevs took up their treatment. The children underwent constant examinations, after which they were finally prescribed hormonal drugs that were supposed to help them grow.
The grandmother had already said that she did not consider the child sick. She claimed that their height is the average normal height. The grandmother herself is 155 centimeters tall, and the mother and father are also of the same height. If a child at the age of 6 has reached almost a meter, then, most likely when he grows up, he will become taller. Therefore, according to the grandmother, this is a normal average height, and maybe those pills and hormones were unnecessary.
The drugs were not cheap, so Tatiana decided to issue a disability group for the children. This would give the family additional support and payments. However, the grandmother was against this, believing that the children were just short by themselves and not because of the disease. It is not known whether it is really so, but after this small scandal, the children were no longer brought to the grandmother. She was allowed only telephone conversations with her grandchildren. In addition, during her last meeting with her grandchildren, the grandmother noticed that Timur had bruises on his face. She was very worried and contacted social services, but they explained to her that the boy had simply fallen and died, as often happens with children, and there was no need to worry. What happened to the children in the following years, the grandmother simply did not know because they were not taken on dates, and she could not get to them on her own. Nobody knew almost anything about the couple and their family, because behind the high fence it was very difficult to see how the family lives. Neither Tatiana nor Yuri received guests, and communication with the courts was kept to a minimum.
I don't know how the family was, but I heard children's laughter, children's games, and the boys were constantly playing football. Dad was knocking something, repairing or building something. Mom could not be heard because it was quiet, maybe calm. I never saw the children, only heard them.
I haven't seen them. I don't know. I've never seen anyone. They come once a week, show what they have, and leave again. They have been living here for several years and bought a house. Men say that they live on children's money. Here, see that opposite lives a large family. Children run, walk, ride bicycles, and play ball. And here, on the contrary, the gate is always closed, everything is closed.
So the children did not grow up in complete isolation. But again, the Kudryavtsev family looked perfect from the point of view of social services, and that did not last long. On June 3, 2017, the Kudryavtsevs reported Amina's disappearance. At that time, she was 3 years old and her height was 98 centimeters. They immediately called the police. Tatiana first of all called the social service and then the police, although law enforcement agencies are usually called first. Tatiana's parents were the last ones to see the girl, and what's more, they themselves were walking with them. That morning, June 3rd, they went to meet their eldest daughter from the train. On the way, Amina asked to go to the toilet, so they stopped at a gas station where the girl allegedly got lost. The parents simply did not notice her disappearance in time, explaining it by the fact that Amina seemed to have climbed somewhere by herself. But how could she do that if the car was tall and Amina was small? This caused great doubt. Both the police and everyone around them asked why Tatiana and Yuri did not notice the disappearance of the child in the back seat. It was nonsense, and the question immediately arose as to who else among the children was in the car that day, because in the event of the loss of one of the brothers or sisters, the children would definitely react. But Tatiana and Yuri claimed that only they and Amina were in the car. It looked like they were perfect parents, but not noticing the disappearance of the child in the back seat is strange. How did it happen that Amina went to the toilet alone without an escort? This is really starting to smell like a lie. That morning, the police mobilized all patrols to search for a local missing child. Either the child was taken by some unknown gypsies who lived nearby or her biological mother. The foster parents were immediately taken for questioning. The grandmother reported the disappearance of her granddaughter. The foster parents didn't talk about it, but everyone had guesses. No one was prepared for what happened. The next day, June 4, the father of the Kudryavtsev family, Yuri, confessed to a terrible act. He burned Amina's body with his own hands and then threw it into a reservoir. A shocking confession from the words of Yuri himself and his wife. The police forced the statement out of him. They were interrogating him, and he actually said it only under threat of physical violence. It seems that he was forced to confess everything under pressure. Therefore, he denied all his statements and insisted that he was not guilty. During the interrogation, the Kudryavtsevs constantly changed their statements, trying to confuse the investigation, but the evidence was found by the police. It was precisely because of this that it was difficult to suspect him of a crime, even though he had already shown where and how he burned the body and how he got rid of the remains. Despite the fact that there was not enough evidence to raise suspicions and detain the couple, the search continued, both underwater and on land. The hope of finding the child alive was still alive, although in reality almost no one believed in it. In short, the case would have failed if a package with the child's remains had not been found on June 6th in the exact place indicated by Yuri Kudryavtsev. Whether it was Amina at the time was impossible to say, but you have to admit it was strange.
They did destroy the child's body. We can say that there is a 100% probability that the remains of the child and the burnt body of the child that we found belonged to the girl.
After another month, the examination confirmed that the gratings found near the pond were Amina herself. The friends of the Kudryavtsevs started talking and voiced suspicions about evil. The police focused primarily on how and why life was spared. All versions about the causes and circumstances of her death were rendered insignificant, as long as it was not clear how she herself died. According to her father's words, Amina died in her bed when her aunt came to wake up the children. One of the possible causes of death was the hormonal drug that her father gave her, and which, in her grandmother's opinion, she did not need. If this is true, then no additional help was given. The fathers did not consider the version of killing the child, but even respected that it was even less virtuous. Protely, tracing the child's body was impossible, and through this the fathers, obviously, were simply afraid to tell about the child's death. This could completely harm their image as ideal fathers and led to the loss of all adopted children. As has already been said, they withheld payments from the state for the children they lived for. Wasting these funds would mean wasting the ability to provide for oneself. After the arrest of the Kudryavtsevs, all of their children, both adopted and immediate ones, were sent to the children's office until the investigation was completed. On June 18, 2017, fate came before the rumors of the Kudryavtseviks. The stench was noticeable, so that the court held closed sessions and there was a wide outcry from the right. Rodina continued her attempts to get involved in the investigation, regularly changing her evidence and relying on her innocence. On January 24, 2022, the Kudryavtsev family received their verdict. They were found guilty of exposing the body of a minor, giving false testimony, and trying to mislead the investigation. Both Tatiana and Roman Kudryavtsev received 9 years of imprisonment each. After that, it was finally allowed to bury Amina's remains, which until then were in the hands of the investigation. At the hour of the trial, Amin and Timur's dear mother, Ilona, returned to Ukraine. Vona stated that she would fight to regain her father's rights to her eldest son Timur. At the time of his marriage to the Kudryavtsevs, the boy had already been in his homeland in Canada, but had not been able to return to his native mother. Now the Kudryavtsevs are awaiting their punishment, and one can say that even those who have burned the body of their hairy daughter will bear this sameness throughout their entire life. Thanks for watching this story. Take care and see you in the new issue.